Since you mentioned YouTube videos, I would just like to, in a minute, I would like to go through some of the encouraging comments that we have received.
Please.
Because just like you say that there is absolutely no material on this subject, whenever we circulate about our announcements of our lectures, people keep on asking me. It's not those people who are in the academics, but simple people, my relatives or friends, and all the time, every single time we make a round of announcement every week, they ask me where is the material about these topics. And just one more thing which you said, which you told me, that that of course there is, for example, in the case of vastu or architectural science, there are ancient textbooks that deal with these topics. And what is the need of these scholars? Then it is that, like mother bird, they are chewing things and then feeding their little ones. The scholars are actually making it very simple and interesting for the curious minded students, to make them understand these topics. I would quickly um, skim
Please.
through the comments.
Please carry on. Yes.
One of our former student at IIT Gandhinagar, she says that I am immensely glad that I took up the course, as the amount of engagement I received with various fields here would have been impossible to acquire otherwise, especially in the course of a semester. Yes, this is a full semester course, and it's not just humanities students or students of any particular stream, but it's a hardcore engineering students who are taking up this course, attending it, and bringing out interesting essays in the end about their individual projects. She continues that I would have to thank you for organizing the wonderful session that we had, as apart from opening new avenues of interest, they also helped me with my other courses. Some more feedback of IITJN students of past editions of these courses say, beauty of the, it was in the answer of the question, what do they like about the course? And they say that beauty of the ancient Indian technologies and culture, lecture from different eminent professors around the country, the quality and variety of the topics covered, diversity of topics, and so on, knowing several glories of our own country and getting credits for it. I have experienced in my Sanskrit courses that students are indeed quite curious about our knowledge systems, philosophy, technologies, and literature. They continuously want to read Sanskrit so that they can go through literature about these branches of knowledge. And over our YouTube videos also, we get some interesting comments, such as um, bowing down before that immeasurable intelligence that we are losing gradually. We need more great souls like you to bring back our lost glory. One of our lectures by um, Professor Shashikala Anand was very popular on YouTube, and people continuously ask about contact numbers or email IDs of these scholars. So through our archived videos, people are getting touch with these scholars. With this, I will stop so that other topics could be discussed.
Vipur, would you like to comment on this, or would you like to perhaps take up some questions which are there in the chat? I do not know. Whatever you would like to add at this moment, you will have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I would be very happy for you to answer questions, because
please,
you know. So there are. Srinivasji, would you want to take the Q&A, or should I?
Can I, before we move to questions, can I make one general remark?
Please.
if I may, which will, Srinivas, I hope I did not cut you short.
No, please
Okay.
do, Professor.
You see, what I want to emphasize is that we are dealing with a totally abnormal situation. Actually, this course should not exist if independent India had done its job of chalking out a proper Indian policy of education, which all stalwarts, pre-independent stalwarts had asked for. If you see Vivekananda, Tagore, Sri Aurobindo, of course, and so many others, they had emphasized the need for a national education, right? It was one of the 4 demands of the early independence movement. So we should not have this course because all these Indian knowledge systems would already be integrated in normal education. In their place, you study civil engineering, let us say at any level, you would learn something in the introductory part about ancient civil engineering techniques, from buildings to water structure to urbanism and so on. You study medicine, you would automatically have to study something of Ayurveda. And you study philosophy, you would start from the Indian philosophical system before turning to the Western systems, right? But this has not happened. We all know that. Our educational system remains deeply colonized. And I'll give one example, and then I will keep mum. One example of colonization is, which I've used several times, is Bangalore University a few years ago floating a new curriculum or syllabus for its master's course in mathematics, right? So all universities have MSc in mathematics. And you can still download it today. I did it just the other day. It's still there. The same syllabus is there. It so happens that out of some good intention, this MSc mathematics syllabus has one paper on history of mathematics, right? So the idea is nice because most syllabi will not even have that, okay? You're just feeding the students today's mathematics as if it emerges, you know, whole and complete and perfect at one go. You don't even tell them that this is the result of a very long process of evolution of ideas. Okay. This, and I have the syllabus, and you can go to Bangalore University Mathematics Department, you can download the syllabus and you will see that I have it, I could display it, but it's not necessary. But strangely, they start from European mathematicians like Euler and Gauss and others, which of course they were illustrious mathematicians. And then they switch back to ancient times and come back to modern times. Okay, so strange chronology, doesn't matter. When they go to ancient times, they speak about Greek mathematics and Arabic mathematics, or mathematics in the Greek world and mathematics in the Arab world. And that is all. There is no mathematics in India, there is no mathematics in China, there is no mathematics elsewhere. So I always say, can you imagine what would happen to a Greek professor teaching in Greece, Greek students, a paper on history of mathematics and completely omitting Greek mathematics? What would happen to him or her? They would be kicked out. Or they would be laughed at least, but not in India. We don't laugh at them, we don't kick them out. They can afford to have a paper on history of mathematics and they don't even mention a single contribution from India. It shows the depth of colonization of, you know, the Indian mind, that we are scared. We don't want to talk about it. I don't know if it is fear in this case, or sheer ignorance, or hostility, or a complex combination of all three. We don't know. I do know that a few scholars wrote to the authorities of the Bangalore University and protested, and the result is that the syllabus remains unchanged. Right. So it's just one symptom. There are many, many other symptoms we are familiar with.
Yes. When we began to learn economics in class 11, it began with Adam Smith and not Kautilya.
Exactly. Exactly. That is the whole point. I have a textbook, an old textbook of CBSE about democracy in India. And the textbook begins in 1947. So the message is clear. There was no democracy in India before 1947. So in every field, you know, if it is psychology, go to the syllabi of Indian University about psychology. It's all Western psychology. There is hardly any room for yogic systems, of understanding of the, which is possibly the most important part of Indian heritage and legacy. Anyway, so there is a symptom, a syndrome perhaps, and this is why there is a very long way to go before these efforts become mainstream, whether the CBSE course is still an elective, and it is, as I said, it is a almost defunct, half defunct elective, which we are trying to revive. Perhaps something will happen, we'll see. But in the higher education, so the present MHRD is trying to do something about Indian knowledge systems, but one video conference we had with them was not very encouraging. There's still too much of confusion, and I want, and I'm sorry I'm taking too much time, but this is a very critical point, that we are facing two dangers. One, from one side, are the negationists, those who say basically there is nothing worth learning or spending time on in this ancient knowledge. It's good maybe for scholars, it's good for museums, maybe for foreign tourists, but it's of no use. So forget it. Why do you want it in the education system? So that's what I call the negationist position. There's another extreme position, which are what I call the glorifiers, and which assert that everything was glorious and perfect in some remote age, and that Indian civilization had all knowledge. So they will go overboard to the other extreme, that all mathematics was conceived in India, which is of course not true. That everything was perfect at one go. So they will not even see, for example, that Aryabhatta had very important results and breakthroughs in mathematics, but also a few errors. And it's all the more fruitful to study his errors, because then we can see the kind of struggle, effort, he was making in his own progress. And this progression of ideas is so critical to understand. So this glorifying, and the other day, I'm sorry, in the video conference with MHRD, there was so much of it. There were still people in Shastri Bhavan talking about aeronautics in ancient India and genetic manipulations in ancient biogenetics and whatnot. And this is shooting ourselves in the foot. We have to be authentic, we have to be scrupulous, we have to accept the limitations, whatever they were. We have to accept that there was no perfect golden age. If Kautilya speaks so much of crime and criminality and all the penalties minutely listed for each and every possible crime, it means that the crimes somewhere were there. So of course we don't have statistics. We can't compare with today's criminal statistics, but it shows that the society was not perfect. But he's trying to honestly address the situation with a certain number of redressal mechanisms, and that's what we have to study. So don't over-glorify, do not trust enthusiasts, and we have so many of them on the internet. That's the problem, because our students today rush to the net. YouTube is the ultimate source of knowledge, and it's so difficult to tell them, no, don't go to the internet, wait a minute. If you have to go, we will tell you which websites are reliable, and they are a minority. Most websites are compromised. You cannot depend on what you find there. So therefore, our whole effort in this course, other courses which I teach here, and the build-up of resources ultimately. So CBSE, we did it, but at higher education level, we still have to do it, is to build a fund of authentic knowledge, which people can access at different levels. And I believe, Vipul, that you wanted to say something about that, right?
Yes.
Could I, Vipul, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Yes. No, I followed very closely the debate you were having with Meera Nanda, Michelle, and there is this tendency on part of the leftists and also the others from the West to focus on some of the extreme cases, and then represent that as the so-called position of what knowledge traditions actually existed in India. And I think it is very important to negate such kind of authors as well, who try to portray that it's only the extreme cases, who talk about flights and atomic weapons in Mahabharata as the true scientific position as it stands about history of knowledge traditions in India. In fact, I was reading one of the short biographical essays that you have forwarded, and which is also included in the material, where you say a wholesome pride of belonging to a country, a culture, a civilization can only be founded on dispassionate knowledge. And I think that is the hallmark of whatever work you have done, is to go down to the sources of all the knowledge and very carefully and methodically and document all of this for the children, for opening their eyes to what actually was the situation in the past.
For the children of all ages.
Children of all ages.
because we have also a lot of adults. We have 90 students registered from outside IIT Gandhinagar for this course, Indian Knowledge System. 90 registrants from outside the institute, and some come, of course, in this present situation. We have only online lectures, but before the Corona era, we had students coming from IIM Ahmedabad, from National Institute of Design, physically coming to attend the lectures. So this is one feature of this course. That
at any point of time, we would have more outside participants, or almost the same number of participants as the number of registered students of the institute sitting at the auditorium. So we have to book 100 people auditorium for our course.
And another question I had was about the DVD project that you had mentioned, but we didn't discuss that here. I'd like to know more about the DVD project.
And I would like to say something there before.
Yes, certainly. I'll sum up extremely briefly, Vipul.
Sure.
It's a project which is probably no longer going to be a DVD. It's going to be a website more than a DVD, which started long ago. And this was to create a mini encyclopedia accessible at totally beginner's level on India's scientific and technological heritage. So we developed, we means myself and a number of writers, quite a lot of topics which we already have in a proper form, which constitutes perhaps 2/3 of the total range of topics we wanted to deal with, or at least more than half. But at some point, I ran into a series of obstacles. One was a software issue. We had to dump an entire software which had been prepared. Vipul helped to create a new software, which we still have to complete. And then the problem of building the remaining material, for which I was not always capable of doing it myself. And I was, depending on a number of people who promised to help, but it didn't work out. So we have to, and the fact that, I do so many different things. My writings, when I can, at least a number of papers have come out. My courses, I collaborate with the CBSE, AICTE contacts me because they say they want to start a course on Indian knowledge systems. Wonderful, but then can you send us a syllabus? So I'm active at many levels, and I have my own limitations. So I could not pursue, though I'm still hopeful of getting hold of a few scholars, young scholars, who will help us to complete the material, and then we'll put it in proper shape. Now, Vipul, it is your take.
Thank you. So, and this is also related to what you were alluding to, if what I had to say. In the given internet age, with the children, first of all, being more interested in superheroes and games, and then, on top of that, having very, small attention span. So, this whole imparting of knowledge at a class 10, 11, 12 kind of thing or beyond is probably too late. And so, it would be good to start a project where 2 minutes do it yourself kind of things could be done, where we pick up a topic address, for example, Indian mathematicians or other scientists, astronomers, and have do it yourself, go to the roof, do this, and come back 2 minutes, and you teach them something, and along with that you also teach them where it comes from and so on, and some interesting tidbits. So that will probably help people and students get into it early. So catch them young, basically, that's the idea. So that was one thing I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else that you were alluding to, which...
You see, incidentally, I should mention that we are starting at IIT Gandhinagar a very ambitious project called History of Mathematics in India. So it's only mathematics, and there will be a component of astronomy. It will not deal with chemistry. It will not deal with all the technologies which we started dealing with in that mini encyclopedia. It is at a very advanced level. It is right for the top researchers. But we also considered the same thing as you say, that we will need to integrate short videos, short interventions, short writings, short articles, things which modern, so that we can address all the levels. So what you say is absolutely not contradictory with the mini encyclopedia thing that I had in view, and which was, as I said, more than half ready. It's not contradictory. It can be a part of it. It can be a sector of it, or the introduction into it, because we should not only feed young Indian snippets. There is a danger in doing that. If you only feed snippets, it remains superficial. That is only the appetizer. You need, the small snacks, but they have to come to the main meal, at least some of them. And for them, then the rest of the project is important. I would like to say, that I gave this series called Exploring Indian Civilization at IIT Kanpur, 16 lectures, and I was extremely surprised. Each lecture was 1 solid hour. I was extremely surprised by the amount, hundreds of emails that I got. I have to apologize that most of them I had to leave unanswered, and 3 lakh views. So if 3 lakh views and so many youngsters writing to me that they watched this video, that video, and it was such a teaching for them. If this was possible, 1 hour solid, I agree with your 2 or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever we decide in the end. But this cannot only be a kind of way to pull them in towards the more serious stuff. So more serious doesn't mean scholarly. And if you remember our discussions, Vipul, when we were discussing the DVD project, former DVD project, which we will have to revive in a new form, it was that it should be accessible to the ranked beginner and intermediate levels. These 2 levels were there, not advanced level. That is for other projects altogether. For the scholars, there's already a lot of scholarly material. The ordinary, educated, intelligent Indian who wants to discover his or her heritage will not go to the scholarly material. We know that. So therefore, this is a kind of, void, a gap, a chasm that we have to fill. And that was one of the reasons behind this project. So I do hope to join hands with you again once we find a few people to help. I can see 1 or 2 in the chat proposing their help, and we will have to contact them and see whether we can form a team to carry out this project to its completion.
Wonderful.
I have a point here. A couple of points actually, Michelle.
Yes, Harry.
We have established a company called iGen Plus.
Oh.
And this is the idea behind this company is now it's 1.5 years. The CEO is Soumya Agarwal, very dynamic. The idea behind this company, it's a joint venture with Indic Academy and Soumya, is to teach culture and creativity outside the classroom and curriculum.
Excellent.
And we do this through conferences, contests, courses, and curated experiences. This is what we're doing. So we hope that the CBSE IKS project can be converted into courses. That's one program. The second program, this DVD project also, we would be happy to do it under that vehicle immediately. We can start that. We have discussed.
Excellent, excellent.
Uh, vehicle.
So you and Soumya and Vipul and I need to have a separate conversation.
Yes.
Right? Excellent.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about is another long-term favorite project of mine is that one is, of course, we're looking at Indian situation about how we look at reworking the curriculum and all that. And that when this government takes pride in the fact that they have not changed even one sentence and all that, I mean, I don't really expect them to change. In 6 years, they have not changed. I don't expect them to change in 4 years. So any intervention that has to happen outside the government. This is my belief, and that's what Indic Academy is trying to do. This is the Indian scenario. I see a broader tailwind across the world. I see a broader tailwind. This is very interesting happening because of the identity politics and the social justice warrior politics. That because of that, there is a big move towards appropriation. There's a big move towards cultural appropriation. There's a big move. You've seen all these things about statues and all that. And indigenous knowledge systems. One of the things as a SJW in quotes, I would like to propose and create a sort of an awareness is that this whole thing of West and East in terms of knowledge itself is a very divisive and identity-driven knowledge creation system. I went to Washington to this college called St. John's College. It's an undergraduate program, and they only do great books of Western civilization. 4 years undergraduate program, and they study the great books of Western civilization. One idea is that should we not have great books of Eastern civilization? That's the first thing. So for which we need to create a curriculum. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we need to have great books of the world, the great books of all civilizations, so that this dichotomy between West and East, geographical dichotomy, doesn't happen. Because a student who actually graduates from that school, he is very condescending towards Eastern knowledge systems, because he's just studied great books of Western civilization. So my proposition is that this whole, and I am sure this tailwind provided by SJW and identity things, the positive thing about this whole thing would be that we need to stop dividing knowledge based on geography. We have to study knowledge in an integrated manner. And I'm not talking about India, I'm talking about a global movement. Once that global movement happens, we will follow that. And then probably our HRD ministry and all that will happen. So I'm very sanguine about we succeeding globally rather than in India.
So, yes, you have a very broad vision. I would like to say, first of all, that you're right. This whole, West versus East kind of discourse is a bit obsolete. It's not working anymore. First of all, where is the East? Is Japan really Eastern anymore? What remains of Chinese ancient culture in China and so on. So I agree that all these border, fault lines are getting eroded. One way by which I can see that is that, for example, there is a lot of very genuine interest in the West for classical Indian civilization. It is studied sometimes much more than in India. You have a lot of Sanskrit programs in universities, Western universities, for which there is no corresponding equivalent in India. For this History of Mathematics project, we work with Western, for example, American, New Zealand scholars who are perfectly fluent in Sanskrit, who can read ancient Indian manuscripts in mathematics, but who also know Arabic and other languages so that they can compare civilizations and their complex interactions. So all of this is undeniable. I think that I have stopped, long ago blaming the West for certain biases because, first of all, it's quite natural that a Westerner should, first of all, study the West. What is not natural is that an Indian should first study the West. We should first study this civilization and then enlarge, understand that all civilizations have interacted in the past. And therefore, you can very naturally expand the study from India to the Greek civilizations, to the Chinese, through just the mechanisms of interaction. And you can develop this kind of integrated view of all these civilizations interacting together. Yet, they have their own specific identities. It's not as if they were the same. It's not as if for example, in mathematics, there's been huge debates about Greek mathematics, ancient, and Indian mathematics, and the fact that they were adopting completely different approaches, methodologies, yielding to different results. So we're not saying Indian mathematics was greater than Greek mathematics. There's no point. It is a pointless exercise. But we have to understand the specificities. You see, the fact that because, for example, Indian spirituality constantly contemplated the infinite. The Jains, for example, the Jain texts are full of discussions about the infinity and also the emptiness, and the Buddhists also, as we know. And this prepared the ground for the mathematical infinite and the zero. So the zero, other civilizations had a zero, but it was a kind of a dead number, dead figure, dead placeholder. They couldn't make it work. Indians could make it work because they had this background. So all these cultural specificities have to be well understood. And then, yes, you can, by comparing or contrasting Indian and Greek, Indian and Mesopotamian, etc., you develop this kind of global scholarship, if that is what you are driving at, where those fault lines are no longer dividing lines, but they are simply different cultures in looking at the world, the same world, in different ways, through different worldviews. The worldviews are different. There may be commonalities, of course there will be, but there are also important differences and we should understand that. Otherwise, I've been, even here it happened at IIT Gandhinagar when I floated this Indian knowledge systems course. Somebody told me, but why Indian? Knowledge is universal. Knowledge is universal, but knowledge is not everywhere the same. And this is not something you would, when I was a schoolboy in France, I remember some of our physics and mathematics teacher never failing to highlight the work of a particular French physicist and French mathematician, because they wanted us to be aware of that. It was a natural thing to do. And nobody was accusing them of chauvinism or jingoism and so on. So I think there is a vast program there, Harikiran, but we have also I think we have to start from our own terrain. Otherwise, we might easily get drowned. This is my own feeling.
Sure. I mean, that's like a 25-year-old project as of now. We might not live to see because politicians are just worthless.
Yes.
Okay. I think now it's 8:30, 8:31. Now I think we've had a wonderful session. And Mana, Shah, or Vipul, do you have anything else to add, or can I, propose maybe closing the session and then
No,
Uh,
I'm afraid I'll remember after the end of this webinar.
so
Um,
thank you
yeah,
very
not
much.
not much. Maybe Michelle, just that the all the so those there are many questions here that people who are interested into this topic can visit our website, which I have mentioned in the chat box, but it will get lost, it seems. On the website, we have readings shared with students for each of the editions. They are it's a very well classified website with information on all the editions of this courses for last 4 years, including this year. So readings are there, videos are there, introduction to the scholars and abstract of their talk is also there. So um, we are building up on this thing. We have a like long like plans for future, but as Michelle says that it's better to share what we have already done. So I would not go into those future plans. But this will be definitely the place which people can come to. Where they will find anything they want to find into related subjects. Um since
Thank you very much, Mana, and
yeah.
thank you, Harkiranji, for your intervention. It's fantastic the kind of things that were decided on this session, and hopefully we've heard the news about the CBSE decision as well. I'm really excited about that as well. This is a lot of great
We
news
shall
today on this
see.
session.
We shall see. We shall
Yeah.
see.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's probably good to be skeptical, but anyway,
Not
thank you very
skeptical,
much.
just cautious. Just cautious.
Okay, cautious. Yeah. Uh, thank you very much. I think Dr. Pingali Gopalji for starting off today's webinar with your fantastic session.
Can I just say
absolutely.
something? Can I just say something?
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
I see that you have changed again.
Yeah. So like, I think if people have noticed the kind of range which Dalino sir presents, from Aurobindo to archaeology to history of knowledge systems, it's an amazing kind of a spectrum, and he has a complete authority on all these subjects. And I think that should be an inspiration by itself to all the young generation.
Like one should see the range of topics students are exploring in their projects under this course.
Lovely.
Like Michelle, would you just say one or two topics that students are dealing with this semester?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Just now, I don't remember. That's your job, Manu.
Oh my God! They are
So,
from.
Vishalji, would you like to say something as well?
I just want to have one more remark, Srinivas, if you don't mind. I just want to leave it out because it's still. I just want to. So I met Michelle 5 years back. I went to Coimbatore and met him, and there are a couple of things that I've been writing to him, and then things. We do so many things, we just miss out. But there's one dream of mine that I want to leave in the public consciousness now, is to use the DVD project and the IKS system to set up a national level Bonvita quiz kind of a thing that is based on Indic knowledge systems for children. So this is the dream. Indic Academy is happy to sponsor this. I asked Michelle to be the quiz master also once, and then he laughed and said, look, I have too much of work to do. But, he can set the quiz questions for us. And then probably Vipul and Srinivas can.
We have a data bank of quiz questions.
Exactly.
We use them for the students.
Exactly.
But they will need to be.
One day this should happen. This thing is that it has to happen through the pull, and when there's a contest and the children are excited.
We'll do it. We'll do it. You just need to find me 20 or 30 assistants. That's all.
No, I mean, I met Harkiranji about 5 to 6 years ago, and from that time I've been seeing him talking about the same thing. He talks about the Khan Academy version of the Indic traditions and knowledge systems.
No, very true. Very true.
The quiz program, All India quiz. But I think, we are much closer today to achieving, the dreams of Michelle ji and Harikiran than we were
It
in
will
the
happen.
past.
It will
Yes.
happen.
Yes. Vishal ji, would you like to say something in closing, and then probably after that we could close the session?
Well, we have a lot of work to do, and I think I'll close on a funny note. So Srinivas, I would love to visit your home because I see a lot of books. My version of Swarg. So I'll
I don't think I can compare with yours, but
I don't know. All right.
And I apologize for not showing books behind me, but the position of my internet cable doesn't match my racks of books. So anyway, but the books are there somewhere virtually, and you just have to.
From which we get benefited all the time.
Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone. We've had a wonderful 4 hour.
Vipul has raised his finger.
After you, once you are done.
Yes, you please go ahead.
Once you are done.
Okay, I'm done. Go ahead.
So Srinivasji, thank you so much for making this happen. You put in a lot of effort into this, and you have thanked us all. And on behalf of all of us, I thank you for arranging all of this and the hard work that you put into it, all the preparation that you did, all the study that you did, and so on. Thank you so much. Without you, it wouldn't really have been the same. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I'm just one of the foot soldiers of Indic Academy as a volunteer, and I enjoy doing this. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Thank you,
so much, Professor.
Srinivas,
It was fantastic having you and hosting you. Thank you very much.
My honor. Thank you.
Thank you.